These are the tales from South Florida for you, with your host Bill Monty.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the first episode of 2025. This is Bill Monty with Tales from South Florida, the fastest growing podcast about South Florida. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us. If you're brand new, welcome. Please go on back and listen to the 30-plus episodes that are already there to get caught up on where we are. You can listen in any order that you want. This is an evergreen podcast, meaning it's not based on any time frame at all. But this one I want to talk about something that might be based a little bit on a time frame. They just had the Orange Bowl game on Thursday night. If you didn't get to see it, it was a nail-biter. Not for the first half. That looked like a runaway. But it totally reversed itself, and like most Orange Bowl games, turned out to be really exciting and decided in just the last few seconds by a field goal. The history of Orange Bowl games in Miami is just amazing, and it got me to thinking about how, when growing up here, the Orange Bowl and the Orange Bowl Parade was such a part of the culture and of our society down here. The Orange Bowl Parade was as big nationally at one time as the Rose Bowl Parade. It was the same as the Rose Bowl Parade, except instead of roses, there was oranges everywhere. We had an Orange Bowl Queen. We had a court of Orange Bowl princesses that followed them. We had stars that were the master of ceremonies leading the parade. We had some of the greatest games to be played in college football history, all in the Orange Bowl, all of the Orange Bowl Parade. And I realized, as someone who did go to the Orange Bowl, I never saw a college game there, but I did go to the Orange Bowl when the Miami Dolphins were playing there. And that was excitement like you've never seen. The Orange Bowl, the stadium itself, this was a stadium that was built around 1937. It was located in the area of Little Havana. And if you know from back then when you went to park there, most of the time you didn't or couldn't park in the parking lot. You parked on someone's lawn for $5, $8, $10, with the hopes that when you came out after the game, they weren't blocking you in and you could actually leave. Or you parked at the courthouse parking and walked, how far was that, a mile and a half, 2 miles? I don't even remember. I was young then. I could actually walk long distances. The venue is considered a landmark, and it served as the home stadium for the Miami Dolphins in their first 21 seasons, and it was the home stadium for the Miami Hurricanes college football team from 1937 until 2007. Now, the Dolphins moved over to what was then called Joe Robbie Stadium, and what to me will always be called Joe Robbie Stadium. That was back in 1987. And the Hurricanes kept on at the Orange Bowl until they just couldn't anymore. The stadium had to be renovated, and the city of Miami was just not willing to do that. Funny, they weren't willing to do that for the college and for the Miami Hurricanes, which was a huge national college team, but they did it for the Marlins. Not going to get into that, but I think the Miami Hurricanes did a lot more than the Marlins ever have. Yes, they won a couple of World Series, go Marlins, but man, you could roll bowling balls down the rows there and not hit anybody these days. The Orange Bowl was not called the Orange Bowl originally. It was called the Burdine Stadium. It was actually named for one of the owners of the stores, Burdines, which we all remember if you grew up in South Florida. In 1949, it was renamed the Orange Bowl for the Orange Bowl College Football Bowl Game, which was played there annually every season. Now, if like me, you attended a game at the Orange Bowl, you know the noise there was unbelievable. Many times during Miami Dolphins football games, the opposing team would complain to the officials that they could not hear. They needed to do something to make the crowd quiet down. I don't remember now if that ever happened. Boy, I would think there'd be a riot if they did. But if you were sitting in those stadiums, especially in the nosebleed areas of it like I used to, when that stadium got to rocking, people were stamping their feet. It was sometimes, I had to wonder if the whole thing wasn't just going to collapse. Going to the bathroom there was like going to the bathroom at the Hollywood Sportatorium. Except if I recall correctly, and maybe I have this wrong, so someone like send me an email or go to the SpeakPipe link and send me a voicemail to correct me. But I think in the men's bathrooms, there weren't individual stalls or toilets except for if that's what you needed to do. But if you were standing, it was just like a trough, like you were some kind of Roman centurion way back in the Roman Empire days. And you just stood shoulder to shoulder doing your thing. Do I have that right? I have a memory of that, and I think it was the Orange Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. So that was something unique about it. A lot of controversy sometimes at the Orange Bowl. When they very first started playing, because the Dolphins played there, they had a live dolphin in a pool at one end of the end zone. And every time a touchdown was made, the dolphin would jump out of the water. Well, of course, the animal rights activists had a field day with that, and that only lasted for a few years. But oddly enough, the idea of that became the basis for the Jim Carrey movie where the dolphin was kidnapped. And Dan Marino, who was the quarterback at the time, also had a part in that movie, which was called Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. The Orange Bowl was also the site of the NCAA's longest college football home field winning streak. Between 1985 and 1994, the Miami Hurricanes won 58 straight home games at the Bowl until that streak was ended by the Washington Huskies. The stadium had this home field advantage that included a steel structure that fans would set to rumbling by stomping their feet. That's all that feeling I told you about when you thought the whole stadium would just come falling down. And there was still the advantage of the west end zone, which had this narrow radius that amplified fan noise. But besides the football games played at the Orange Bowl was the memory and the excitement of the Orange Bowl Parade. The Orange Bowl Parade was originally called the Palm Festival. That was in 1935. It was later renamed the Orange Bowl Festival, and the popularity grew steadily, especially after a full-time business manager was hired in 1939 to get out there and promote it. 2 months later, in May of 1939, organizers officially incorporated themselves as the nonprofit Orange Bowl Committee. Now, if you've been living in South Florida for a while, and still today, you often hear the name the Orange Bowl Committee. The parade came to national prominence after the Second World War, and a key factor in the committee's success was its early and mutually beneficial partnership with radio and broadcasting when television came to the forefront of home entertainment. And that's what brought the Orange Bowl festivities, the game, the parade, Miami, to a nationwide audience. The parade packaged the social, cultural, and carnival-like fantasy life of Florida for a northern audience who would like to warm themselves up by their television on New Year's Eve. Unlike the Rose Bowl Parade, which was always held during the daytime, the Orange Bowl Parade was staged at night. And that was unique among parades of the time. With the beautiful floats now lit up so they could be seen at night, everything looked more gorgeous. Miami looked more beautiful than ever before. It was just a win-win for everybody. And if you lived here during the time that the Orange Bowl Parade was a big deal. And for me, I remember the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s. You know, by the time the 70s came around, there would be something like 500,000 people lining Biscayne Boulevard to watch that parade. That's a lot of people. You know that if you're ever on Biscayne Boulevard right now during going to work or going home traffic. That's also about 500,000 people. But unfortunately, around the year 2000, the popularity of the parade began to wane. The crowd started dwindling. Literally only about 20,000 people were showing up, and in 2002 it was decided to end the parade permanently. But fear not, my friends, it still does exist on a much smaller scale. The Junior Orange Bowl Parade is a yearly Coral Gables event that celebrates community, culture, and local children with a parade of cars and floats and bands. They recently just held the 76th annual parade on December 15th, 2024. And even though it is a smaller parade version of the Orange Bowl Parade, it is still a connection to our history, to what we do down here. And that's really what's really nice about it. Around the holiday times, you can still find the Orange Bowl Parade. You just have to go looking for it. I hope you enjoyed this talk down memory lane, looking back on the history of the Orange Bowl and the Orange Bowl Parade. And we'll be having more episodes coming soon. I do like to remind you at this time to please, if you enjoyed the episode or other episodes, remember to hit that follow or subscribe button. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. It helps to grow our show, and it will remind you when a new episode is dropped. So we both benefit, right? Until next time, my friends, thank you so much for listening. Happy New Year to you. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon. And we tell another tale from South Florida. Until that time, be safe and be kind. Hey, my friends, thank you for listening all the way to the end of the podcast. You know, a little secret about podcasting is that the way it's distributed is very different than other type of media, such as radio or television, even streaming services. So podcasters rely on the platforms like Spotify and Apple and Amazon to put our shows in front of the ears of listeners. And sometimes one of the things that tells them to do that is to have a podcast where people listen to the end. So I want to thank you so much for sticking around, for listening to the end, because that does help the show. And I just so appreciate it. You're already helping so much by listening, by clicking that play button. And I can't thank you enough for that. I hope you're getting the enjoyment out of it that you expected. And the enjoyment that I have putting these episodes together and visiting and talking about the memories that made this unique area such a great place to grow up in and to live in. I do kindly ask you to please, if you want to, scroll down in the show notes to where it says leave me a message. And if you click on that link, it will take you to the SpeakPipe tool that will allow you to leave me a 90-second message. And in it, I hope you'll share with me your memories of growing up in South Florida, maybe story ideas for the future. I have been getting some of those, and I thank you guys so much for sending those in. We are looking at all of them for future episodes. And it just helps make this what I always wanted this podcast to be, which is interactive. And not just me telling you my memories, but me being able to tell everyone all of our memories. And wouldn't that be nice? So I appreciate it if you can do that. And one last final note here. A couple of shout-outs, if I may, to some of the listeners here. To Miss Laurel, who was kind enough to make a contribution to the show. I just want you to know how much that means to me. And, you know, it doesn't cost a lot to do a podcast, but it does cost money. I don't make money doing this. So your kind contribution to help offset some of the monthly cost of the show is really and truly appreciated. And my friends, if that's something that you would like to do also, and believe me again, you listen, you hit that play button, you are doing so much already. But you can go to our website, talesfromsouthflorida.com, and you can go down to where it says, buy Norman a treat. Norman's our co-producer. He's also my dog. And he sits by me while I'm doing these podcasts, recording these all the time. And all he asks for in return is just a little treat every now and then. So if you'd like to do that, I appreciate it, okay? The other person I want to do a shout out to is Michael, who wrote to me right before the holidays, right in the middle of December. Michael, thanks so much for your email. I do appreciate it. He gave me some great story ideas, and we're going to be looking into some of them already. Aerojet and Nike missile bases in Key Largo and Everglades. I'm not familiar with that, so I'm still doing research on it. Crandon Zoo, absolutely planning to do an episode on that. The Deering brothers, yes, they are actually scheduled to have an episode done about them, because I so do like talking about the people that really built Florida. By the way, if you thought this episode was going to be about the Orange Bowl, that used to be in the malls where you could get the great pizza. The great pizza really wasn't great pizza, but it was great pizza. We all remember it that way. I didn't talk about it here because I talked about it already in the episode entitled The Malls of South Florida. So go have a listen there. Thank you so much. This episode has run long, but it's been a pleasure talking to you. Hey, this new year, we got a whole bunch of great stuff coming up. I invite you, too, to go over to Blue Sky. If you haven't joined up, Blue Sky is the new, safe, kind social media space. We're going to be moving everything off of Facebook and moving over to Blue Sky. I've already started and built a presence over there. So you can go to Blue Sky, look up Bill Monty, just hit follow, and I'll follow you back. This could be the start of something good. Until next time, my friends, please take care of yourselves. And now, here comes our theme song, so don't turn it off yet.
Let's take a talk down memory lane, 'cause the stories around here are just insane. Pirates World, the Sporto and Wolfies do, Palm Beach to Key West, that's where we grew. These are the tales from South Florida for you, with your host Bill Monty.